Former U.S. Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, shot in the head and paralyzed last year, has faced her attacker in court for the first time. She was there to see Jared Loughner sentenced to 7 consecutive life terms in prison. Loughner killed 6 people in the attack in Arizona and injured 13, including Giffords.
Gabby Giffords and her husband, Mark Kelly, stood side by side, staring at the man who tried to kill her. Loughner looked towards them as Kelly said, "You may have put a bullet through her head, but you haven't put a dent in her spirit. She's now done thinking about you."
I could sense in the way she held her head, her curiosity, her great intellect, and also I believe that it may have provided some closure for her. She is an amazing woman.
Giffords' former aide, Ron Barber, who was among the victims, also confronted him in court.
And then I turned to Mr. Loughner and said, "I hold no hatred for you, but I am very, very angry and sick at heart about what you did and the hurt you have imposed on all of us."
It was in January of last year in Tucson, Arizona, that Loughner, who was mentally ill, went on the rampage. Armed with a semi-automatic pistol, he tried to assassinate Giffords, raising the gun to her head and firing.
As Jared Loughner was brought to court in Tucson, there was little doubt about the outcome. He'd made a plea deal and knew he would never walk free. In fact, the troubled young man, seen in this chilling picture at the time of his arrest, was sentenced to 7 life sentences plus 140 years in prison. Also arriving for the hearing, his target, Gabrielle Giffords, who gave up Congress to focus on her recovery. Seen here earlier this week, she still walks with a limp and has speech difficulties. In court, her husband told Loughner, "You may have put a bullet in her head, but you've not dented her commitment to make the world a better place." It was almost 2 years ago that Loughner opened fire at a Giffords political event in this shopping mall in Tucson. 6 people died, including a 9-year-old girl, and more than a dozen were wounded. After today's sentencing, one survivor relived the moment.
Before Jared Loughner was sentenced was that of Bill Badger, who at the time of the shooting was a 74-year-old retired Army colonel who had gone to this community meeting to speak with then Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords about Obamacare. He survived being shot by Loughner.
And when he got about 10 feet from me, he pointed the gun at me and looked. When he reached and grabbed it with this hand, why, I ducked, and when I ducked, I felt the bullet go right across the back of my head.
Despite those injuries, he was one of the people who helped subdue Loughner and prevent further death and injuries. We also heard from Ron Barber, who was a staff member for Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. He was eventually elected to fill the remainder of her term, and as we speak, the votes are still being counted on the latest election to keep him in office for the next 2 years. Here's what he had to say.
I turned to Mr. Loughner and said, "I hold no hatred for you, but I am very, very angry and sick at heart about what you did and the hurt you have imposed on all of us." I told him that he must now live with this burden, and we'll never see outside of prison again.